Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Understanding Human Design podcast. I'm Karen Curry Parker, and I'm so excited today to have with me one of my very favorite projectors, Evelyn Levenson. Evelyn Levenson is a certified human design specialist, a quantum alignment system practitioner, and she's an author of the ebook Human Design 101, a crash course in aligning with your authentic self. As well as several online courses, including courses that focus specifically on the adventures, I like to say, of being a projector. Evelyn's going to be speaking at our upcoming International Human Design Conference about the joys of being a projector, which is a conversation I feel like we don't have enough when we talk about projectors. So I'm excited to hear your take on being a projector. Welcome, Evelyn. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm delighted.
Cool. So Evelyn and I go back, way back. Like we go back so far back that I think the first time we sort of encountered each other, it was before we had like online courses. we were doing things on USBs and mailing them out. So I want to start our conversation with a question that I think is a really important question for projectors, especially. You know, I think when we hear the story of projectors, it is oftentimes a really painful story. And I think a lot of the way in which we talk about the projectors in traditional human design is kind of discouraging for projectors. So I want to know, what was it like for you, given all of that, when you first found out that you were a projector?
Great question. Yes, and before I answer that, I do find that so much of the traditional human design teaching is very disempowering for projectors. And I am on a personal mission to help empower projectors because the world needs empowered projectors, which we'll talk about more later. But when I first learned that I was a projector, my initial reaction was huge sense of relief. It's like, oh, I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not irretrievably different from everyone else, because even though I seemed successful on the outside, I had 2 master's degrees, I was very successful in business, and before that in government. On the inside, I didn't feel like I fit. I didn't feel like things worked for me the way they work for other people. Between jobs, I would want like a month off. 2 months would have been great. And nobody else ever wanted that. It's like everybody else was ready to just go right into their next job. And I'm looking around going, what's wrong with me? Why is it so important to me to have some time between, just to, rest and recover and recuperate, because I worked really hard when I worked. Mm-hmm. So I appeared successful on the outside, but I sure didn't feel it on the inside. And I really did wonder, like, what's wrong with me? I just don't seem to be like other people. And sadly, in this world, I think we are across the board not taught to love ourselves. Mm-hmm. We are so involved in self-criticism and judgment and judging others and comparing ourselves to others. And often we compare the worst of ourselves to the best that we see in others, and it's just so unfair. And so that was my initial reaction, was just huge sense of relief. It's like, oh, I'm okay. And the greatest gift I've had since then, which was, 11 years ago, was and is relaxing into who I am and being okay with who I am, accepting and finally loving who I am. It's made a huge difference.
Beautiful. I love that. So when you found out that you were a projector, what was your biggest surprise about being a projector?
The whole thing about invitations. That was a new concept. I understood what invitations were generally, but that was a way to operate my life. Just seemed really odd until I started looking back into my history and realized that all of the super awesome jobs that I had ever had, I had been invited into. And I'd never noticed that before. I'd never put that together. But when I look back, I went, wow, that one and that one. And the few times when I actually tried to go get a job myself, fell flat on my face. I couldn't get a job to save my life when I was trying to, do the regular standard way of getting jobs.
And let me just say, so that people get this, if we looked at you on paper without going, okay, Evelyn's a projector, I mean, you have like a lot of the metrics that the successful world would really be like, wow, this is a candidate for giant,
Right.
success and momentum in the corporate world. And yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
yet,
have an MBA yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. But it just wasn't me. I mean, I enjoyed the challenges of what I did, but I would burn out. After about 2 years, I was like ready for something new. And I wanted some time off in between. So, and there was this deep sense that there was something missing.
mm,
Like I knew that I was somehow capable of making more of a difference, especially
mhm.
on a personal level with people. But I had no idea what that was or how to go about finding that or doing that. So I actually followed my instinct at that time, which was to quit
Mm.
my job. It had been sort of petering out because I had been pulling away from it because I didn't want to do the whole corporate thing. So I pulled away and I kind of dropped out and I just drifted for a while. And I tried a little this and I tried a little that and I took classes and I was just trying to feel my way along. And I came across a health coaching teaching program. And I thought, okay, well, I'm really interested in health. I always have been, maybe that's some way that I can help people. So I was taking that course. And that was when I discovered you. You and Brad Yates were doing a
Ah,
teleclass on EFT.
we were like babies back then. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was so impressed with you. I mean, I knew about EFT, and that was interesting. And you never mentioned human design, but you mentioned your website, KarenCurry.com. And so I was so intrigued with the way you spoke about just people and life and things. You just had this perspective that seemed so wise and so encompassing. So I went to your website, and lo and behold, there was this whole section on human design, which I'd never heard of. And that was my introduction to human design.
And I appreciate what you're saying though, because I think you just articulated something that, I have always thought that one of the gifts of human design for anyone who really starts to explore it and study it and incorporate the understandings that it brings into the way in which they relate to other people is it does give you this really beautiful perspective on the story of humanity and deep insights around like why did they do this stuff that I think
Right.
allows you to move out of some of the judgment pieces and really look at, well, why, this archetype has this potential, and let's start speaking into the drivers that feed this potential because we can see all the little parts in the chart of how these things play together.
Right. Yes. Human design, it shows not only how similar we are, we're all made of the same components, but
Mhm.
also how different we are and how we can appreciate those differences. I think it's human nature to often assume that other people are like us. It's like, well, if I can do this, why can't this other person do that? Can't everybody do this? It's sort of natural human nature to assume that, but that's so not true. We are all so different, and it improves relationships enormously once we have that deep understanding of, wow, that person really is different from me, and let me understand those differences so that I can help them fulfill their potential as well as the potential of the relationship. It, as you know, human design improves relationships phenomenally. It gives us a lot more patience, I think, with other people. It's like, oh, now I understand. He can't help it. That's just the way he's wired. I get it. Okay.
As you know, I'm raising a projector, which I've never done before. I have, 8 kids. 5 of them are my own biological children, and 4 of them were all generator types. And so now I have this little projector tag along at the end. It's so fun to watch her really embrace her projectorness and to really see. I mean, I think this has been the coolest part is just to see how inherent the nature of the projector just is, it's just who she is, right? And
She can't help it, like the rest of
and
us.
watch her be like, I mean, you can see it on her face sometimes. She's just sitting there like, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh God, don't do it. Oh, they did it. Why did they do that? You know?
I could have told them that they shouldn't have done
That's
that.
exactly what she said. She goes, you should have listened to the projector. Always listen to the projector.
And what a gift for her to be raised by you to support her in being who she is, rather than trying to force her to be something she's not.
Well, she's run the charts of everybody in her class, so now
So
she's so.
I think you're pointing to something really important here that, well, first, we live in a world that is dominated by generators and manifesting generators.
Mm-hmm.
And the ideal that most of us have in life is manifester, to be able to just make something happen. And so those of us who are projectors are sort of stumbling around in this terrain, trying to navigate our way through it that isn't projector friendly. They don't really understand who we are and why we're here and the gift and the resource that we are and can be for people. And so we're often not, I don't know what the word is, we're just not appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it really hard for us to feel good about ourselves.
Totally. And again, not trying to shift the focus to my daughter, but it's just so extraordinary to see her, because we had to look for a long time to find a good school environment that would really support her energetically and sort of philosophically and from a values place, and to really see her in an environment where people do really see her, and to really be cognizant, because she was definitely in a situation for the first few years at school where she wasn't seen, and actually wasn't just not seen, like was literally almost pushed away. Like they put her in special ed, and they were just like, oh, just go to special ed, and they kind of just dropped her there. And
This one doesn't fit in, so
right,
move her out of the way.
she has the 4320, her sun and earth are conscious 4320, so she really doesn't fit in. But now she's in this like freaky school. So but to really, like, she has a reputation in this classroom as being the mediator. She is the kid, and this is middle school now, right? That she is the kid that can go, okay, here's what you need, and here's what you need, and here's the place where you can both come together and get what you want, and let's work it out. And it's so elegant to see that happen.
As it unfolds naturally.
And to see it happening without the trauma or people saying, what's wrong with you? You're so bossy, or ignoring her. It's just, it's really beautiful. And it makes me really want to continue to call out all the projectors and go, it's going to get better. It's going to get better.
And that you found an environment where she can thrive and fully blossom as who she is. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's just sort of godsend and just perfect. So when you found, again, talking about the gifts and the blessings of each type, and especially of projectors, especially because, again, we tend to focus on how they're bitter and they're bossy and they're tired. You know? What do you think are some of the biggest gifts about being a projector?
Well, first, we're really wired to be of service. And I think that so many of us feel that at a deep level. I know I have all my life. I didn't really know what to do with it, but I just was driven to be of service in some way. And so we are really here for others. Yeah, I think we're one of the few types that's really here specifically for other people and to guide other people. And one of the things I've learned that's so important that I share with all of my projector clients is that projectors are here to guide energy, but not necessarily to manage people, because people don't necessarily want to be managed. So it's a useful thing to keep in mind. So yeah, it's a gift to be able to innately have and then share wisdom with other people about how they can do things better, but only, of course, when they ask, when they're ready to listen. But we have an innate sense of how things can work better. We have this penetrating aura that gets into the heart of who that other person is and how we can help them. So I think that's one of the beautiful gifts. And another gift is something that I learned from you, is that we projectors are here to hold the energy grid of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I had not heard that from anyone else before I heard it from you. And when I heard it from you, it just had that deep soul resonance of truth for me. And every projector I've shared that with, which is plenty of projectors, they have all shared with me that they had that same sense of resonance, that, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yes. And that's a gift. I mean, the humanity is in this huge period of transition now, and it needs all the help it can get. And we projectors, I believe, are here to be sort of on the forefront, leading by example and leading by guiding, to help humanity, to help our fellow brothers and sisters to transition into a more beautiful world.
Totally. So, I never shared where that insight came from. And I think this is a really interesting time to tell that story. A lot of my clients are what I like to call woo-woo light workers. But they're very much aware of the consciousness that is shifting on the planet. And at the time when I first started doing human design, like the first 10 years, literally almost every client of mine was a projector. I maybe had 5 generators over the entire span, maybe 1 manifestor, no reflectors. And they kept saying to me over and over again, last night I'm so tired because last night I was like flying over Korea and doing all this stuff in Korea. And last night I'm so tired. I was like in, Russia, or I was tackling all the people grieving from 9/11, and I was like, helping them figure out where they needed to be and guiding them to the light. I mean, this was not like a one-time story. Like all these people were telling me, like, at night they were working hard. And I finally went, these people, even though they think, oh, I'm tired and I'm just laying on the couch doing nothing, they are working so hard on a metaphysical level that, this entire, and this makes sense if you start to look at it in the context of global cycles and the fact that we're moving out of material consciousness, which is really about doing the 3D work, into quantum consciousness or activated sort of expansive creative, quantum creativity. The projector, which is a fairly new type, is really showing us the arc of how we create on a frequency-based level. And it's different than the generator way of creating. And so all of you projectors who might be listening who think, why am I so tired? I'm not doing anything. You're pretty darn busy holding this entire thing in place while the rest of the template sort of fills in the gaps that you're holding and bridging, with your arms at night, trying to keep it all together.
Holding the grid together.
It is hard work.
It is. The grid sometimes doesn't want to be held together. It's like a little like herding cats.
Exactly.
All organized.
So I want to share one other thing. This is actually something I learned from my daughter, and I want to see what you think about this.
Okay.
Very early on in her life, she declared that she had to have at least 1 pajama day a week. That was her declaration. And so we have like a religious thing in our house now that we have our Saturday pajama day. And that is the day she does not get out of her pajamas all day, as a reminder that she needs to rest. What do you think about that as a strategy for a projector?
I think it's brilliant. Totally brilliant. May I borrow that?
Yes. So I keep telling her, you gotta write a book, honey, because I think, there are a lot of people, projectors or not, who need pajama days. So.
But particularly projectors, I think we often push ourselves so hard to keep up with the environment that we find ourselves in, that kind of demands a certain level of energy and consistency that is often not easy for projectors. Mm-hmm. And I have learned through trial and error, trial and exhaustion, to build in time for rest. If I can work really hard for a couple of months, and then I'll take a month off, and then I'll realize, 1 month wasn't really enough. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really learning to listen to my body and listen to where my energy is and what I have energy for and what I don't, and allow myself the recuperation and the rejuvenation that I need, that may look like I'm just lying on the couch, but there's more happening than that. It's not just I don't feel like, it's like, no, I can't at this point. I really need to take care of myself.
I love that. And I love the way that you have learned to listen to your body instead of like the little formulas we have in our head. Well, 1 month off should be enough. That if it's not enough, if you're not restored and rejuvenated and rested, then you're not. And there's no workaround with that.
There's no shortcut. And I happen to have not only struggle, but a lot of ambition and control in my chart. So I can push myself very hard. I have only one motor. The root is defined, but I can make that root do double duty. I can really push with that root energy.
With a limited amount of time, you can, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't last, and I pay the price. But yeah, learning to be okay with my energy. One of the things that I'm really out to shift in the world for projectors is this idea that we are not sustainable. To me, that's an incredibly disempowering concept. And I understand, yes, our energy is not sustainable in the way that the generators and manifesting generators have sustainable energy, but it doesn't mean that we are unsustainable as a human being. And to me, it's like our energy is just different. And it's very possible for us as projectors to be sustainable, but in our own way.
Yes.
We need to reframe, redefine sustainability. But I was mortified when I read or heard, like, I'm not sustainable. Like, well,
that was my language. Yeah.
How the heck am I supposed to function in this world if I'm not sustainable? So that's part of my mission, is to shift that conversation.
Just manage the way that I teach that. Thank you. I appreciate that insight deeply.
You're welcome.
That's very powerful. Evelyn, how can people learn more about you if they want to learn more about being a projector or get your book or connect with you?
Sure. I have a website. It is humandesignforsuccess.com. And that's human design for the regular word for FOR, humandesignforsuccess.com. And I have lots of blog posts that I've written. And actually, I wrote one that says Notes from the Void. That some people may find fun. And I have courses, and of course, I do readings.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to hear your talk at the conference. And I'm so looking forward to the further notes from the void and beyond.
Thank you for this opportunity. And I'm thrilled to be talking about the topic of communicating for projectors. So my approach will be, let's talk about projectors. Let's talk about how others can communicate with projectors. But then most importantly, let's talk about how projectors communicate with others.
What a powerful topic. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
See you there.
Bye for now.